episode 298 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest format-defining announcements for the casual spike.
Uh-oh.
My name is Stanislav.
Oh, spoilers.
My name is Stanislav here in Chicago. And with me on the line from Denver, Colorado, it's the interrupter, Shane Beeps.
That's what they call me. I'm here to overtalk you and not use our hand signals. It's that kind of evening, Stanislav. I'm ready. Are you ready?
I think so. Also with us, the godfather of cool, Dave Harbarger.
Yeah, even better. Not the godfather of interrupting. You could call Shane an interrupt and me an instant if you want. If you want to go way back to... Can you believe if they reintroduce interrupts in Foundations?
It's really weird. Does that use that? Is that part of the batch system?
Yes.
They don't use
They're
the
also
stack.
bringing back
Did not. It's pre-stack. Pre-stack.
batches.
Some people like to say they're full stack. I like to say I'm pre-stack.
We don't need no stinking batches.
Last but not least, the Doom of Fools, Devin O'Donnell, aka Doomwake.
Apparently, I'm full stack as well. I don't know what that means, but I'm now dubbed as full stack.
That's something developers say.
It's
Usually,
my wrestling name.
But I'm into it. I'm
Full
here
stack
for it.
Calhoun.
Yeah.
He was a mountain of a man.
Full stack is when you know how to use Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook.
Okay, I take that
About
back.
access.
Take that back.
I'm pretty sure that's what full stack means. Somewhere, like a third to 50% of our audience are developers, and they're all going right now. They all have this look on their face.
I see Aaron out there.
Bob, somewhere the president emeritus is out there, Bob.
The president emeritus of sponsoring this podcast.
That's right.
Heavy Play.
Yeah.
Card gaming accessories brand that will improve your gameplay and game day. My game day needs improving right now. And I have been going through my cards, doing some organizing, and I've removed some stuff from my Heavy Play deck boxes and was reminded they're my best deck boxes. They have playmats. They have deck boxes, as I mentioned. They have card sleeves. They have dice boxes. The dice box, underappreciated, in my opinion, because I like that I only need one. I never have to move my dice around between my various boxes. Very key. Enhanced ergonomics, mobility, and protection, because the EquipMag system, as I mentioned, allows you to magnetically attach your deck and dice boxes, bundle things together, carry it all in a single hand. You might be able to get it at your LGS if you are fortunate, or you can always shop at heavyplay.com. And if you do, use our code, the Dive Down 2024. Those are numbers, not words. 2024 would be hard to spell out. 10% off your first order.
Would you say that the EquipMag system lets you fully stack your deck box and your playmat?
I was just going to say, this is a full stack solution for storage and play of your Magic cards. Totally. Now all the developers in our audience are going, yay!
They got
like
the
poetry.
reference.
It rhymes.
Yeah. I am that reference.
You guys want to hear about this week's show?
Oh, we've heard
I
about
mean, I
it.
guess.
Surprise me.
We should have started recording 15 minutes ago because there's already been conversation.
Well, we are going to have a conversation today about the Foundations era of Magic the Gathering, the cards that we will be playing, and the sets that they will be releasing.
Is that the Apple TV Plus series with Lee Pace? Do you think we're going to have Foundations at some point in the future?
That'll be fun.
Man, I bounced off that show so hard after like 4 episodes.
Yeah.
It went totally sideways.
It's a
I was
tough
like,
watch.
What is going on?
It's a great story, unfilmable in my opinion, but anyway, Foundations coming in 2027.
But we got to housekeep first, because we have 2 great patrons to join the Dive Down Nation. Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Love their music.
Oh.
Love it.
And Lawson Zandy, a returning patron.
Return of the King.
Wouldn't it be nice if Lawson Zandy was a patron?
He is.
Good news.
God only knows. Caroline, no. Do you guys have a Pet Sounds era? Shane, were you anti-Pet Sounds?
No, I'm fine with Pet Sounds. I mean, I more remember it being like the meme of the unreleased album versus like it actually being an existing piece of music.
That wasn't Pet
Like,
Sounds though. Pet
I thought
Sounds.
Pet Sounds was Smile.
Smile is the one.
Oh yeah, Pet Sounds. Yeah, this shows what a fan I am. Yeah, I like Pet Sounds. Everyone likes Pet Sounds. Some of the most beautiful music ever written.
Yeah. I've told this story many times, but I saw Brian Wilson do Smile live for a DVD taping one time with like 100 other people. I told this story where I like sat next to Zooey Deschanel.
Oh,
yes.
that one.
Jason
That was the
Schwartzman
Oscars.
gave me a mean look. Do you think Jason Schwartzman still listens? I know he was here for the first couple episodes. No. Okay.
I like the song "Feel Flows" by the Beach Boys. I think that's a really good one.
Oh, yeah, you would. That's the most millennial Beach Boys song that you could come up
Sounds
with.
like an Animal Collective album.
That's why I love it.
Sounds
Yeah.
like Animal Collective.
If you'd like to support the show, you can find us over on patreon.com/thedivedown. You can support us through our shop, thedivedown.com/store. You can rent Magic Online cards with our promo code, thedivedown10. All one word, all letters. No numerals in that promo code. And that's all you got to know for now. That's the foundation of our podcast.
I think you're the foundation of our podcast, Stanislav.
Hey, thanks. I always thought so too.
Standing on a bunch of
Wow.
turtles.
298 episodes, the truth comes out. Say the quiet part out loud, Stan.
I did come up with the title of the show.
True. You had the title before you had the show.
It was a top-down design.
Yes. Yeah, love that. Love that.
We were recording this episode on Monday night. And the reason we were able to do that is because I got to participate in a foundation's press conference. However, the information in the press conference was under embargo until Friday afternoon, which is when we're releasing this episode, a full 36 hours later than we usually do.
Stanislav, I have to ask,
Yeah.
are you violating the embargo by sharing it with your co-hosts?
I hope not. I can't imagine how this would be any different than me sharing information with my editor. I think the embargo is meant to be withheld from the public. But
I do edit the podcast, so
we are a media organization. We are Dive Down LLC.
True.
And we can adhere to the rules of an embargo, and I doubt anyone will be upset that we pre-recorded this content to line up with the lifting of that.
So just imagine how many more days we've been able to be angry in silence.
I've sold all my duresses.
I have talked to my
got out in
therapist
front of
about
that.
it. I guess that's another place I broke embargo, as I sought professional mental help on how to cope.
Well, that's doctor-client privilege.
That's also true.
Wow. Okay, we're really setting ourselves up for something here. So Stan, so you
Anyways.
go to this press conference today,
Yeah.
and what you're expecting to see at this press conference is
Foundation spoilers.
right. Hey, Foundations, it's coming out. Here's what's in the set.
And they came through on that. We found some new cards to talk about.
Yep.
And old.
So remind us, what is Foundations?
Foundations is designed to be two very important things to Magic. One is it's a replacement for Core Set to provide a backbone of technology available to standard players for an extended period of time. They've said that it's going to be standard legal for at least 5 years, and then they're going to evaluate how it's impacted the format and whether they need to make adjustments thereafter.
At least 5 years is very interesting. I hadn't seen that particular part of it. Okay. At least.
The other part of Foundations is that it's designed to be an introductory set for new players. Both in the way they're releasing products, there's going to be like beginner boxes, beginner collections, but also in the cards they've designed for it and curated for it among the reprints.
Mm-hmm.
50% reprints, 50% new cards, but they all capture the core essence of these colors and really are meant to just kind of introduce new players to what Magic is about fundamentally, while also offering cards that competitors may want to use in tournament settings as well.
So like white's like what, like, white weenie, blue is counter magic, black is graveyard, red is aggressive, and then green is everything.
Green is
Mana.
elves and
green is
land.
Llanowar elves.
Yeah, green is Llanowar elves into
you
crawl.
ruined my whole joke, which is that green gets everything.
Oh, I see. I mean, that's the way it used to be, but I had this revelation the other day, and it may be my old age is showing here, but if you look at the set symbol for Foundations, it's just like a little star, and I actually think that might be a callback to Starter 99.
I think it's on purpose.
Yeah, I think it might be.
25-year-old callback, but I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, it's just Starter.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember those with like the weird like bold text and like simplified design.
Yeah, which is what I think is a good thing that they're doing with this introductory idea, which they've tried many times in the past in various ways, right? And this time we're trying it with it being a legal set that people can use for a long period of time. I think it makes sense conceptually, right? Like that part of it makes sense to me. I like the idea of there being a basic level set. I'll be very curious to see how many of these cards in the set are any good, or if any of them are very warping, which would be kind of a bummer. But
hold on, so the set is designed to provide that, or like I thought like it had like starter type stuff, like a starter deck.
It's both, right?
It's both. Yeah, and I think it's meant you have this beginner box. If you're using Foundations to learn Magic, you have this beginner box with like literal jump start style packs that you can shuffle together or play a scripted game of Magic to learn the sequences and turn order and all that. But then you can just keep being a beginner while buying more Foundations booster packs, and the complexity level will never exceed a certain point that they've deemed as essentially beginner friendly.
I mean, strangely, I've been buying booster packs for 9 years now. I still am pretty much a beginner. Worked nicely.
Skill issue.
Skill. I know. I don't know if that's true, Shane. Not many beginners have a day 2 of a GP, my friend. Which you
I'm just going to lean on that one for a long time.
For another 10 years, like I have.
Not many beginners have a hit Magic the Gathering podcast either.
That's true. 300 episodes, almost.
298,
really,
but
God willing. The one thing that I think is a thing that they did badly with starter and all those things in the past is that it was like a different game, right? Where it was kind of like, okay, you can put these cards in your Magic deck later, but instead of block, they used the word intercept. Mm-hmm. And there were all these like things that they tried to do to the actual mechanics of the game to make it more beginner friendly. And I think just making a set that's consistent, that maybe like Shane said, the complexity level of the cards in the set is of a certain type, is better than making affordances and making like splitting the rock, so to say.
Yeah, and remember they had those sorceries that could be played at instant speed. They didn't want to have instants in the set because they thought that they were too complicated, but the sorceries that you could play like only on your opponent's turn during combat, like this is obviously
there
an
were
instant,
a couple of those. Yeah, that was weird too. That was another thing.
There was a counter spell that was printed as a sorcery but said cast only when your opponent casts a creature spell or something like that.
So anyway, okay,
Essence
good potential.
Scatter.
Good potential, Stan. The plan makes sense.
And some of these cards are pretty neat. Staples like Negate and Disenchant and Duress are going to be in there. They're bringing back a cycle of color hosers.
Yes, from way back.
Yeah. When I saw these cards, and these cards are Disenchant, Duress, Sorcerer's Spyglass, Soul Guide Lantern, and Negate. These are all cards that have a special place. Well, many of these have a special place in my heart. Negate is one of my favorite cards ever for weird reasons. The color hosers, when you add those in, Flash Freeze, which is counter target red or green spell for a generic and a blue, Death Mark, which is destroy target green or white creature for a black, Mind Sparker, if you remember that card, it is a 3/2 for generic red, first strike whenever an opponent casts a white or blue instant or sorcery. This creature deals 2 damage to that player. And then finally, Mold Adder,
M10,
which
baby.
is a 1/1 for green that says whenever an opponent casts a blue or black spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. This is when I looked at this and I was like, are they just making M10 again? Because this really does look like M10 to me. And that's one of the last times that I remember these color hosers being around. I guess 2012 is the one that we're talking about too. But it definitely like immediately just seeing these cards on a page together, I was like, this is more core set than any core set we've had for the last few years, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, even if you go back to what was the Veil of Summer debacle? That was 2021, I think. There was like Veil of
that was
Summer
M20.
and that
Yeah.
it was M20. Yeah, that cycle of color hosers. Like that's I think if memory serves, that might be the last time that they printed color hosers in like. Well, I guess that's the last time we had a core set, but just in general, it's like we don't really see those color hosers these days anymore. And I mean, Flash Freeze and Deathmark are pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be useful potentially. All right. So Stan, you're seeing this and you're kind of like, okay, cool. What else? What's next?
In terms of cards or announcements?
In terms of, let's do a little bit more on cards.
Okay.
Because there's some weird stuff in here. Demonic Pact and Harmless Offering are here together. Morrow, hinted that there was going to be a 2-card win the game combo. That's what it is, right, in the set. And that's fun. I think, obviously it's kind of silly for these to be in the set together, but this is the type of thing that really ignites people's imagination when they first play Magic, when they're with a friend who maybe just happens to have these 2 cards and they figure it out for themselves, or, they're like, or you're like a kid, you're like a 12-year-old and they're like, check it out. I have this combo that just kills you.
And you're like, that sucks. And you're like, I want that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
That's how blue players are born.
There's a new card that kind of it kind of belies the entire concept of the set to me in a little ways, because it has like 8 lines of text and an activated ability. And it's Tiny Bones, Bauble Burglar, 1 in the black, 1/3, legendary skeleton rogue. And it says whenever an opponent discards a card, exile it from their graveyard with a stash counter on it, and during your turn you may play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile, and you can use any type of mana to cast those spells. And then his activated tap ability, 3 in a black, each opponent discards a card, activate only as a sorcery. Pretty fun little card. It's, it's not graveyard hate because it's discard. So definitely not as powerful as something like Dothy Voidwalker, but it's not meant to be.
Yeah, I mean, among these new cards, I don't know that I've seen much to think power. Maelstrom Pulse being a reprint might be relevant to something like Standard or Pioneer.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
That used to be a modern playable card.
Twin Flame Tyrant is like such a core set mythic red card. It is a 3 generic red for a 3/5 dragon with flying that says if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent that opponent controls, it deals double that damage instead. I mean,
quintessential
this card is not bad.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it seems pretty decent.
Yeah, and this is another one of those light bulbs go on moments where you go, this says it's a 3/5, but it's actually a 6/5 because it also makes itself deal double damage, and then you kind of like go, oh, I get magic now, and then you're also like, I want to put lightning bolts in my deck.
And Dave's happy.
It's kind of like Unstoppable Slasher, how I think that a part of us missed that on the spoiler where it's only a 3 mana 2/3. No, it's actually a 3 mana 11/3.
Right. Yeah.
No, honestly, the card that I like the most of these cards spoiled that we've seen so far is the Crystal Barricade, which is the white and a colorless for an 0/4 defender. It says you have hexproof, and it prevents all non-combat damage that would be dealt to other creatures you control. So 4 toughness means it's outside of stuff like, Lightning Strike, Shock, the stuff that's usually red-based and standard. It doesn't die to Brotherhood's End, Pyroclasm, any of that stuff. And you have hexproof, so they can't burn you with like shocks or any of those burn spells. And it makes all of your other creatures impervious to their red spells. So, I mean, it could be a really good sideboard card against red decks.
Or it could be a card that ends up just in your deck in an artifact synergy-based deck that happens to have bonuses against these other things as well.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mention it's an artifact creature, which does definitely matter.
And does definitely die to the second line of text on Brotherhood's End.
Oh,
which is destroy all artifacts with
okay.
CMC3
Never mind. You're right. I always forget that. All right, we'll cut that part. Or leave it in.
No, leaving it in.
Or leave it in.
It matters.
That's fine.
And make it louder and auto-tuned.
Yeah. Dies to the second line of Brotherhood's End.
And again, there's another card too that I think is like, very core set if we're talking about a game that's 30 plus years old, which is Bloodthirsty Conqueror. 3 black for a 5/5 flying death touch vampire knight. And whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. how many things can you imagine going with this to like make some kind of combo happen?
When they introduced this card in the press release, they added the note that it combos with a ton of cards. They did not elaborate beyond that, and I just don't anticipate playing against this combo myself. But
No one will ever discover the combos.
I mean, we'll see.
Far too mysterious.
A lot of us thought that Vein Ripper wasn't going to be anything. You know,
I don't
vampire.
doubt that this effect does combo. I just don't know if we're spending 5 mana or putting this card in it. If we are putting this card in a deck.
Yeah, we'll
the
see.
Royal we.
Did we gloss over the greatest meme card of all time, Hidetsugu's Second Right? Are we just going to pretend like that didn't exist?
The reprint from Xavier's?
Yeah, that card's a
Is that
banger.
important?
Like, it's not going to see play, but it is the funniest card ever printed.
It's also now an uncommon instead of a rare, so it
Yeah.
can go in all of your peasant cubes.
They did my boy dirty. Used to be a rare, but
Yeah, I mean, I this is the one where I was like, really?
it is kind of weird to see that in a core set, right?
It's very weird. I mean, I think there's a lot of like maybe better cute than good stuff where it's just like I want to give some kid out there to see this card and be like, you have 10 life, I'm casting Hetsugu's Second Right, and I got you. And just like to live that dream once. I mean, I don't know if it's worth the card slot, but there it is.
It does make for really good stories, and if I'm playing a red deck in Standard, I don't care if it's right or wrong, I'm going to have one of these in my sideboard.
Nailed it.
So then, after the Foundation's announcement,
Here we go.
our friends Mark Rosewater and Blake Rasmussen come on to talk about 2025.
Right. So you're thinking at the time, and our expectation when you were doing this event was, this is going to be it, right? We're just done. Look, we're just doing the cards, and you're just going to see the sets that are coming out. You told us you might get some info on 2025. We might get the set names.
Yeah, and
But
we
mostly
did.
we're going to talk about cards today.
We got like the 2025 set roadmap. Like we know there's going to be 6 sets. You know, we know that one of them is going to be called Edge of Eternity, and
Right.
another one is going to be called Final Fantasy, and that we're getting Return to Tarkir.
Right. So
Sweet.
you're watching this thing. They get done with the cards. They come out and they say, we have to tell you about the new era of Magic. And it's called the Foundations era.
This is kind of out of nowhere, right? Like this is kind of out of nowhere.
It was out of nowhere to me. Yes.
Yes, I don't think any of us thought there would be lots of things attached to this idea. And Stan, what do you think are the precepts of the Foundations era of Magic?
So the first thing they do is set up the fact that there has been confusion among sets of recent years about what is legal where, and they want to start clearing up that confusion and
Okay.
making it easier by making things either legal in all formats or like essentially legacy legal. Those are the two that we'll only ever get.
So I want to delve into this because this is very
Sure.
important.
Yes.
So they come out and they say, we're going to make it so that everything we make is either legacy legal or standard legal.
Eternal legal is how they called it. So
But
it's-
eternal legal is standard, is legacy and vintage, right? And commander.
Yeah.
Right. So they're saying what we're making is going to be one of these two things.
For the foreseeable future.
They didn't say anything about Modern Horizons, Pioneer Horizons, anything like that in that context.
They did not. But I also think we understand Pioneer Horizons is just a port, an MTG Arena port.
Yeah. I just mean people may someday start banging the drum for direct to print into Pioneer 2. I don't say I want it. I'm just saying they're saying that stuff is off the roadmap, including potentially Modern Horizons, which is one of their best selling sets of the last gajillion of the last 5 years. All of the Modern Horizons products.
Yeah, I think there's a read of this that Modern Horizons is now maybe on hiatus. And we can talk about that too, I think, in our breakdown.
I'm not getting this, y'all, but maybe they'll be more clear about this later, but let's keep rolling. Why stop the cash cow?
So because there's going to be other ways to make money, Shane.
Yeah.
We've cracked it. So one of the ways they're going to make this streamlined legality process is by expanding legality for Universes Beyond and beginning with the new sets of 2025, Universes Beyond is legal in all formats, starting with Final Fantasy.
Right. Not past ones, just the ones that come out in the future.
Correct.
Now, this is the thing that I don't think anybody was expecting. Am I right?
No.
This is part one of what we were not expecting.
Correct.
Yes. And so, okay, let's take part one as like, the shot. Okay. So we have our shot. It burns a little bit. Okay. Oh, well, maybe like, the one Universes Beyond thing a year. Okay. Final Fantasy. That's cool. I guess that's cool. We can have that in standard. And then maybe next year we'll get, the Snorks or something like that. And okay, so be it.
And if they're like, yes. And if they're like Assassin's Creed, no big deal. Because, that hasn't impacted our Magic at all.
No. Except those of us who lost money on Basim.
I didn't lose money on Basim. I've got them. I only paid $1 for mine.
Oh, good.
You can't lose money if you buy them and don't sell, right?
That's
True.
That's a very good point, Devin.
But okay, so this is like a bit shaking in its own, though, because it just means like, okay, the Marvel set that they talked about at the Comic-Con over the weekend, which we originally thought was going to be like a pan-Marvel set, and now they've announced that it's just Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
In my mind, when they first mentioned that, I thought that they had said, hey, this set is only going to be direct to modern.
Yeah.
And that's it. But now it's standard Pioneer Modern. It's everything, according to this. Surprise.
Well, yeah, because initially when they first announced that they were going to be going into the Marvel IP, I don't think they specified what the legality was. Probably because they had this in the holster for a while, right?
You would think they would have to have this in the holster for a while, but I swear that they said, we're going to do a direct-to-modern Marvel set.
This is my memory as well.
Okay.
But memories are faulty, and maybe that was just something people connected the dots on. I don't know.
Maybe it was direct-to-modern and Pioneer and Standard. Anyway, okay, so how deep do we want to go on this particular point right now? Or do we need to go on to the second half of it?
Let's just say the second half of it, and then we can have a full-throated conversation.
Time for the chaser.
Okay.
In addition to the expanded legality of Universes Beyond, they're also balancing our Magic the Gathering worlds with others, and for the foreseeable future, there will be an equal number of Magic settings and Universes Beyond settings with Foundations as the backbone. End of line.
Yeah. End of communication.
So what we know tangibly for 2025 is there will be 3 standard sets based on MTG worlds and 3 Universes Beyond sets also going into standard.
Okay. Let's digest this in chunks, right? Okay. Yeah. And so the easiest one, 6 standard sets in a year. That is more than 4, which is the former number of standard sets, correct?
Well, this year it's 5.
Yeah, we've been on 5 for a minute.
Okay.
I think.
So now we're going up to 6.
Yeah, because we've had this year we've had Murders, we've had OTJ, we've had the current, we had Duskmourn, and Foundations. Cinco.
Yeah, it's 5. Okay.
And then we have a 6 set this year, which was Modern Horizons.
Right.
Which was also a full set.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about printed into standard. 6 printed into standard sets.
Which is a lot.
And Foundations.
If you kind of just replace the Modern Horizon set with a UB set, which those would all be standard, you know what I mean? Like they're all standard legal at this point, so.
It's the same amount of product
ish.
It's just all standard product instead of these niche marketing kind of.
Okay. But the much harder thing to talk about is the fact that there will be 3 Universes Beyond settings going directly into what they are ostensibly trying to make into the most popular format, which I believe is the most popular format on Arena, which is probably the most popular way to play the game, at least digitally.
Did they share any info on that?
No.
I don't think Arena is the most popular way to play Magic, by the way.
No, it's Commander by a mile, right?
I think it's still Kitchen Table by a mile, then Commander, then Arena, probably FTP. Arena, and then that's it.
Oh, I thought you meant like specific formats. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think Kitchen Table people who just have some stuff around the house is still what it is.
And it's from this that I get the reading of like Modern Horizons, while successful, it contributed to this legality confusion. Like,
right,
smaller than the standard sets, bigger than commander sets, I guess, which do come with booster packs now too, I guess.
Do you think that the product called Modern Horizons had confusing legality with whether or not it was legal in modern or other formats? I mean, I get that, like, you know, obviously, you know, it's a product. People who are newer to the game maybe don't understand the older formats and stuff like that. But I mean, the set is called Modern Horizons, right?
Yes. I sort of believe that the company line of legality confusion is a neat way of talking about sets that are for me versus sets that are not for me. And this is just a way of saying all sets are for you now because all of these cards can be played everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably pretty true, Stan.
Sure.
I mean, we're even sort of like delaying talking about the thing that I think people are most annoyed about, or some of the things that people are most annoyed about with this conversation. But this is like a constant back and forth in Magic, I think, and it goes hand in hand with having a starter product on the shelves, a new player acquisition product on the shelves, is how niche marketing do we do within the confines of Magic versus how much do we just make Magic about just playing Magic for fun, right? And so I think that this is another swing of that pendulum back towards Magic formats are a thing. They're player driven is what they're saying right now. The players, quote unquote, have made the formats, or they're enforcing the formats. And what we want to do is just make cards that everybody can play anywhere that they want. And our concern is balancing the most recent products so that the most recent Magic is the best product that it can be. And that's how we make our money. And I think a couple years ago, we had swung fully the other way with the inception of Pioneer, and which I think is a format Wizards probably has not made any direct money off of. But with Modern Masters and then Modern Horizons coming out, them saying, well, and Commander products and all those kind of things saying, what we're going to do is we're going to have multiple customer personas, and we're going to market to our multiple customer personas. And maybe now they've gone, oh my God, we have too many personas. We need to cut down the number of personas. We're just going to sell to Magic players, sort of. We're going to sell to two groups now. It's Magic players and non-Magic players who like stuff and might think that these cards are cool.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other thing, I don't know if you guys saw, did you guys see the announcement last week where they announced the RCQ formats for the 2025 season? So for the listeners at home who maybe didn't know, they have essentially removed Pioneer from the rotation. There's 3 standard and 1 modern for next year, or I guess 2 and 1, but the next season is standard, which is like half this year, half next year. So I think, if you're coming at this from the perspective of they're clearly trying to promote standard and get standard back to where it was pre-pandemic. If you go back and look at, tournament attendance, 2017, 2018, it was all standard. If you went to your LGS to play FNM, you would only play standard. Nobody else is playing other formats locally for the most part. And they really want to go back to that. And, like you said, with the format legality, it's like, is this product legal in this standard format? As they're pushing more towards standard from a business perspective, it kind of does make sense for them.
Perhaps.
I totally agree.
I think we will see, we for many of these things, just to give you my last take before I leave, I'm leaving after this moment. I think that we will see this pendulum continue to swing back and forth over years of time going on. But anyway, right now, what's in fashion inside the halls of Wizards / Hasbro is standard has to be the king. And we need to get people into the LGSs because listen, there's been lots of moments of bad press for Magic over the last couple of years, right? Like think about that article that came out on Forbes or whatever the heck, where they were like, oh, Magic is overvalued. They're overprinting. They're like fishing their whales too hard is basically what this person was saying. And, the 4 of us sitting here, we're nothing if we're not whales as far as spending money on Magic goes in one sense or another. We are. As far as just buying packs of Modern Horizons 3 and buying singles and those kind of things, like we're not at the top end, but we're at like the higher end of their average consumer spend, I would bet. I can see them saying, wow, the analysts really hate when we started going too deep into these like crazy prints and doing the trading card stuff and all of these things with really high dollar reprints. What we need to do is make products that appeal to everybody. So we need to broaden our customer base back out. And I feel like that's a lot of what's going on with a lot of this. Obviously, especially when we transition over to the other thing, which is, okay, so half the time we're going to be doing Universes Beyond and half the time we're going to be doing Magic IP. Who's got content loaded in the chamber about this?
So much.
So much? Shane?
I have so much. Well,
what's your glass half full?
Mine or Shane's?
Shane. If Shane has a lot.
What is my glass half full?
Yeah, what do you think is the good news here?
Magic continues to exist.
and will probably grow.
Yeah.
Right? Will probably grow as a result of some
a commercial
of these things.
success.
Probably.
They're certainly betting. They're betting on it. They're betting on it.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Dave brought up something in the Discord today that I think we will digest later. That it's like, I think making something like this a long-term success is harder than it might seem, right? And I don't want to talk about that off the bat, but like, I don't think you can just be like, yeah, we've got all the IPs that we can afford, and therefore Magic is going to be a success.
Yeah, I mean, Stan put together a nice list here. The good, more cards for everyone and easier to understand legalities. Okay. That's probably true. I'm sure they'll screw it up at some point in the future. But okay, if we're going back to simplicity, let's see if that works. More players incoming. Probably. I mean, I have had a recent kind of stretch of lots of parents of people I know who have teenagers, parents of people that I know who have kids around my kids' age asking me about Magic.
Yeah, and they're all like, David, we heard your Magic podcast and we don't want your children hanging out with our children anymore.
We're good. Yeah, don't bring them around anymore. I can't even get my kids to look at my Magic cards. It's definitely in that space of like stuff that dad likes is not cool, so we don't want to do that. We'll see. Someday maybe they'll be into it. They just have to print a Minecraft set, my friends, which is coming. They will print a Minecraft set.
More than
anyway,
be OP.
Yeah, diamond pickaxe. Okay, and then more money for WOTC. Okay, I mean that's fine. I hope that they
Great.
Right, that's good. So,
am I overlooking anything? I wrote this list in 5 minutes at McDonald's.
yeah,
Did you dictate it?
what was the brand crossover at McDonald's when you were there?
They're just doing McDonald's brand Halloween buckets. There's no.
Did they bring those back? Does one
Thankfully.
still glow in the dark?
Yeah,
The buckets are back, baby, but they don't glow in the dark. Too many children got irreversible stomach lining
cancer.
damage from the last time they did that.
Oh, no, it's not BPA.
Yeah. The last time we were there, we got a Happy Meal, and it had a tiny crock in it.
Yeah. I have so many of them. Bro, I have so
Was it
many of
like
those
a
Crocs
cross
right
thing?
now.
Was it like one of those things that you put on your crock, but it was like a mini?
Yeah, it was
crock?
like a crock charm crock.
It's a backpack
Brilliant.
charm. You can
Oh, it's
just
a
hang
backpack,
little Crocs on your backpack.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're not doing that. But anyway, I mean, I'm joking about this brand crossover because this is the world that we're
What
entering
it smells
into.
like, yes.
Right, Shane?
It's the Happy Mealification of Magic.
Yes. All right. So, I mean,
Go ahead.
I feel like we talked a little bit about this about 50 episodes ago
Yes.
because we had a listener question that we
Shane,
answered.
it was just you and me on that episode.
Oh, it's just you and me.
It was just you and me doing a wind down.
just the two of
responding
us.
to a listener question. Yeah.
So this is, I mean, and I don't want to repeat everything I said there. And I actually went back to the thing. I looked at what I typed up. It was a lot, and I still am strangely on board with my take a year ago. But I really wanted to sort of get a lot of your all feet like ideas on this.
No one could ever judge you for being inconsistent, Shane. You are a man of your principles. You don't change your mind like I do all the time.
Once new data emerges.
Yeah, Shane goes the same even when there's new data.
When there's new information, I
I'll change my
dig
mind.
my heels in. My flag has been planted. Okay, so one thing that I meant, so the question was really like, how do you feel about Marvel? Marvel, baby. Like, how do you feel about Marvel? And the thing that I mentioned there was something that I did not make this phrase up at all, but like we were hearing it kind of already, which was like this idea of like the Fortnite-ification of Magic. And really what that refers to is how Fortnite, the very popular battle royale game, essentially just constantly is adding new skins that your character can be, and I think like vehicles and stuff in the guns, whatever, from like the poppiest of pop culture, right? Like Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, Shaquille O'Neal, the Ninja Turtles, Eminem, Futurama.
I love that Shaquille O'Neal is the poppiest of pops, and Futurama.
Dragon Ball Z, right? The list is essentially endless. And I am going to sound like a jerk here, and I'm fine sounding like a jerk here, but I personally consider this stuff to be like essentially the lowest common denominator of pop culture, chosen to appeal to the widest swath of audience, and for people to be able to use a skin that says like, hey, you know that thing? I like that thing.
Yeah. I do want to break this down a little bit here before we move on to some of your subsequent points, because I think there's really three paths here, okay? There's different tiers of this kind of implementation. There's Fortnite, which is purely cosmetic, right? I mean, I don't know enough about Fortnite, but it's not like, it's just right. Cosmetics, right?
I think some of the special like guns they bring in, well, like my nephew plays this, or, you know, from time to time he's like, yeah, like this Futurama gun is super good. So like it can change the mechanics, but essentially it is a, you know, it's a minor modification of the larger game environment.
Right. Right. And the other thing that's interesting about this, and maybe I'm being harsh on Fortnite again, is that Fortnite was always an empty vessel for this kind of thing. Correct? They started having these brand crossovers very early in their history, if not were always designed to do it. I know there's some lore in Fortnite. There's the battle bus and stuff like that. But I think that Fortnite has always sort of been an empty vessel on its own, right? Ready for things to pop into it. The Happy Meals really are another thing, Stan. Like the fast food crossover event of a special item, you know, a prize and a Happy Meal, that's just like pay for play stuff. Those are ads essentially, right? And I don't think that Magic is doing that either. The Fortnite-ification is also essentially ads, right? Like I'm not sure what the licensing deals are for those kind of things, but I think that in some cases I wouldn't be surprised if Fortnite was getting that money. It's Epic, right? Fortnite is Epic. Mm-hmm. If Epic is getting that money, right, to be able to do a placement for whatever bad horror movie is coming up that they're going to do a special product for or something like that. And then some of them, they're probably courting people like Star Wars. They're like, okay, we have to work out a deal that's mutually beneficial for both Star Wars and Fortnite in this space. Magic is probably close to that. The other one that I wanted to talk about, which we've talked about a little bit, and I've talked about in the past, is Lego, which actually is a bit more, it's still kind of cosmetic, but I think that it actually does a ton to enhance Lego personally, because people are just going to do these aftermarket products of the Lego things that they want to build anyway, right? Like people are going to make the Batmobile out of Lego because that's what Lego is made for.
I mean, I own the Back to the Future, set. I have the Saturn V rocket. Like I have stuff that I think is cool from the real and fake world.
Right. And I have the Ghostbuster. I have Ecto-1. You know what I mean? I guess that I would say is the pessimistic view, and maybe it's just because I'm a boomer. To me, the pessimistic view of this is Fortnite-ification. To me, the positive view of this is Lego-ification of the game. Mm-hmm. Now,
I think that's fair.
I will note, Lego has had some press recently where they have said they are struggling in the reality that they've created for themselves, where they no longer have product lines that are successful that are not tied to something else.
Oh, so like Lego Cities isn't like
it went too far.
Isn't bumping.
It's not as bumping as Harry Potter. is my understanding. Now, I don't know if that's changed, but it was definitely like a business plan that they said, oh my God, Star Wars is a huge success. We're going to do it. Harry Potter's a huge success. We're going to do more of it, like building these kind of reference sets. And then they got to a point 4 or 5 years ago where they were like, oh my God, we have to develop our own stuff because we can't be beholden to all these licensees for our success because they're just going to raise prices on us eventually. So again, it's going to swing back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good take, Dave, which is like, right, you can put a negative or positive spin on this depending on your level of excitement and the opportunities you think that it provides the company to keep making pieces, whether it's Lego pieces or card game pieces, right?
Right.
And I think kind of along with this, right, is like, I think the argument that people formerly got to say was like, you can choose to ignore products like this if they aren't for you. And I think that's all well and good when it's like, a Doctor Who or like a Fallout Commander deck set. But we were kind of to that point with Lord of the Rings because of the modern legality and the power level of some of the cards. And like, let's say Assassin's Creed ended up being better. We'd have more of those cards as well. But like now we can't choose to ignore things that we don't feel are for us, right? Or, us meaning like whoever's out, the royal us, okay?
The casual Spike.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
And but now this is with what, the announcement we got today, this is looking like, I don't know if Magic ever has like an end state it is going to be in for more than a few years, but like, let's say like this is an end state of Magic that they want to exist in for perpetuity. Like that Cardboard Crack comic from like 4 years ago has come true. Like SpongeBob is going to attack your Kylo Ren. You'll cast like your Whopper as a combat trick, and then Travis Scott is going to activate sicko mode in response. And that's clearly an exaggeration, right? But like how much of one kind of does remain to be seen. And like my take back then is like, I'm not here to like yuck your yums. Like I think like there are potential yums to be had here, but like for me, this still remains antithetical to like the core tenets of what Magic is, which is like the game and world design that has been in place for like 30 plus years. And we can say maybe until, let's say hard and fast with the Lord of the Rings stuff, right? Because that was something that impacted maybe constructed Magic and wasn't just like an extra piece of cool secret lair or something like that. Like they made their own worlds within like these fairly defined sort of rules and concepts on execution. And that worked, like sometimes to great success in terms of world building, sometimes to less great success. And now that's not as strong a direction of the world building.
The world building is really important, and stories matter to Magic. I think we see that in the fact that there's going to be a Netflix cartoon. Like just recently, there's all this press about the cartoon is back in development, and it's about Magic story.
This is one of the most surprising things to me about the balance of this announcement and the way that this feels, listening to it from what you told us from the press conference and what I'm expecting to be in the public release on Friday, is it sounds like they are trying to find ways to invest less in building their own story when they are simultaneously finding ways to put their own story out there in more diverse channels, right? Like making a cartoon on Netflix, that's not an insubstantial cost or investment, I imagine, from Hasbro or from the people that are behind that project. And so it's a little cross-purposey to me where I'm like, okay, I do have a small fear that just occurred to me, that the setup for that story is going to be how it came to be that Spider-Man is in your Magic the Gathering next to the Snorks. Like there'll be this like meta narrative of multiverses in the story where it's like, oh yeah, everything fits together because of blah, 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 blah. But anyway, it's surprising to me when it sounds like they're investing more in the story, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was other media that comes out of it if the Netflix show is any kind of popular.
Yeah, that was going to be my exact point. Is like, if they're like you said, if they're doing less of the storyline throughout the year with these more UB products and things like that, what else, what else where we see the storyline besides, like you said, just this Netflix product.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like the fact that stories matter, not just magic stories, but stories matter. Like it's the story of Spider-Man and the story of Final Fantasy clearly matters to customer acquisition, customer retention. Like, maybe there's some calculus here that like the magic story for I think for the four of us doesn't really matter much other than the settings that we see within the cards being unique settings. And maybe there's calculus that like we need something more familiar to keep a certain subset of people to keep engaging while bringing new people in as well.
Well, I mean, those people aren't necessarily looking for like the storyline of Spider-Man, right? Like it's, what more can be told about that? They're really just there for they're almost just there for the cosmetics at that point, right?
Yeah.
Or
Just imagine like Legendary Land, Queens, New York.
Yeah, I know, right? It's
Tap
going
to
to be
deliver
like
a pizza.
Aunt May's house. Like, I don't know.
What actually, this the concept of this that's already irking me is I really do not like when they just reskin old cards with new names, and then they have like the little tiny text underneath is like Aunt May's house is secretly like Sterling
Evolving
Grotto or
Wilds.
something.
No. I love it. I feel like that is the way to do Universes Beyond stuff that doesn't like destroy Magic. I would much rather it be like, if you want a Magic card that has Aunt May art on it and she's Joyra, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't. That's the most you can ignore this if you don't want it version of Universes Beyond. Right?
But I think we won't get a lot of that. Because they won't sell packs that way.
Oh, my friend, we will. You know how we're going to get that?
Secret layers?
No, the same way that they're in the Lord of the Rings sets. There'll be box toppers.
Yes, box toppers,
where it'll
bonus
be
sheets.
like a masterpiece style bonus sheet that's like, here's the version of whatever, and it's really ancient tomb, but in this one it's whatever. And that's that I guarantee that will exist in these sets. And I bet that they drive a lot of the cost in these sets, because if these cards are mostly standard power level, then we're going to be working with reprint equity still in a lot of these cases, I think.
How do you guys feel about this, though? Is like, besides sort of like the potentially somewhat objective take that I think we might try to provide as like a podcast, is like, what does this make you feel? And maybe we need to touch on this a little bit later, but in terms of like, do you think that this is a positive or a negative?
I'm going to give a very 50-50 kind of take here. I've tried to be somewhat optimistic on the show to this point, right? Shane, when you were talking about the whole, you can choose to ignore products like this if they aren't for you, not every product is for you. I do think that we're in a unique position, or people who are as enfranchised in Magic, or anything for that matter, as we are in a unique position when stuff like this happens, because they have created a world, or about to create a world, where we can't ignore these products if people want to be casual spikes and be people who are competitive in Magic playing. But the vast majority of people who are about to come into Magic very much can't ignore these products, and can be like, I'm going to do Foundations, and then with my friends, I'm going to have a Spider-Man commander deck, and I'm going to play it against their Gandalf commander deck, and that's going to be sick. And I don't care if these cards that come out, maybe I'll look at some website once a year to update my Spider-Man deck, because some card that I've never heard of fits in the Spider-Man deck. But what I will do is watch for the next time a Marvel set comes out, and then I'll put those cards in my commander deck. Like, that's like the level below us of enfranchisement. And then there's going to literally be people who just are like comic enthusiasts or Final Fantasy enthusiasts,
or SpongeBob enthusiasts,
who when they see that this set is coming out, they're just going to buy this set and be like, I have a box of these Magic cards, and like, I played when I was a kid, but now I'm going to play SpongeBob Magic for 2 weekends in a row, and then put it in a box and put it in my bureau, and I'll put it away for good. Like, those are the levels of engagement that are going to happen. So I do feel like we're in a unique position here because we're the people who are going to have to eat all this garbage, realistically. And I am a little bummed emotionally about the way that I felt after the announcement, right?
Yeah.
We were talking before the microphones turned on about a TV show that's on right now called Nobody Wants This. It's on, is it Nobody Wanted This? Nobody Wants This?
Nobody asked for this?
Nobody asked for that. Yeah, no, it's Nobody Wants This. There's an episode on that show called The Ick. Are you guys familiar with this concept in Gen Z slang, like people then younger than me slang, the ick?
I've heard this.
Stan, do you want to explain the ick?
So imagine you're a really simple way to explain this is if you're in the dating pool and you're getting to know someone and then they do something so cringe that you get the ick and you never want to see or talk to them again. You hear their like off-color British accent and you're like, I fundamentally don't respect you as a person anymore.
Right.
It doesn't have to be just the dating pool. It could be like an acquaintance and like, I don't even want to be friends with this guy. He keeps eating Chef Boyardee from a Ziploc bag in the car. Like,
yeah, he keeps saying my wife after everything or something like that. You know,
These are really specific references, Stan, by the way.
he keeps posting
what you
pictures
know.
of his pizza in the Discord and it doesn't even have meat on it ever.
And I took that personally.
it's called a margarita pizza.
So I bring this up for a reason, and that is because the ick at its core, the way that most people, when you talk to them about it, is that it is an emotional, non-rational response,
Like all of mine.
right? And so
Correct.
I try to have a rational response to what we're doing. We've been talking very rationally, but I still have like, it gave me kind of this ick moment. And I don't think I'm alone in this.
You
No.
I'm going to be brief, but like you're just, when you were talking about like levels of engagement, like I'm just imagining like Seth Manfield casting Squidward. And I'm like, I'm out. Seth Manfield can't cast Squidward. I'm not okay with
He's
that.
going to. You know he's going
Yeah,
to.
but what if Squidward's OP?
I would get
What if
over
he's-
it.
What if Squidward's broken in half?
I don't know if I
Squidward
could get
definitely
over
makes
that.
Thopters.
Devin, you're not sure?
I don't know if I could get over that. I mean, like coming from a competitive perspective, because I'm like, mainly focused on the competitive aspect. It's, I don't necessarily, I wouldn't say that I necessarily care whether like what the exact artwork or the name of the card is per se. I really care more about the text box. But what concerns me is when you look at some of the universes beyond product. Like imagine, for example, like let's say hypothetically in this alternate universe that this announcement was made a year prior and Orcish Bowmasters was legal and standard. Like, can you even begin to imagine what that would even look like? You know what I mean? And part of me wonders is like, what are these UB sets going to look like now that they're maybe more focused on standard, more so than they were in the past, right?
I think that's a really interesting point. It makes me wonder whether a card like Orcish Bowmasters can exist in the Foundations era.
Oh no, absolutely not.
There's the almost like this positive angle of like we're going back to a modern that is only influenced by standard, and though it will have these 3 Modern Horizon sets in Lord of the Rings, but if they do indeed, and this is still interpretation, but if they do indeed stop printing direct to modern sets, for instance, like nothing new will see modern play that hasn't gone through the standard filter first. And I think that's something a lot of people yearned for, but it's a little bit of a monkey's paw how we came to this conclusion.
I mean, this is why I think they absolutely will continue to make Modern Horizon stuff for the people who don't want to engage with universes beyond as much. If they like just sort of massively depower like standard, and in order to keep it maybe simpler or more fun, and nothing's going to be too broken that we have to ban and make people upset or things like that, then like they still want to sell $10 packs. You know what I mean?
But they're collector boosters. They just sell the collector boosters now.
Well, I meant they want to sell $10 packs to the audience of people who will purchase them in Pioneer and Modern for like Horizon sets.
Yeah, this guy. And also for the health of the format, for better or worse, if you look at the impact that the last, the Horizon sets have had over the course of Modern, like they changed the entire format. Imagine a world where, again, in this hypothetical universe where we don't get another Horizons or direct to modern product, and they've toned down all of the UB sets to make sure that they're appropriate for standard level play, like what does modern look like in 4 or 5 years from now? Are we just going to be playing energy mirrors for the next 10 years? Like what's the outcome?
My belief, if we take this for what Stan told us, is probably, I think that's probably what's going to happen. Or they're going to say commander cards are now legal in modern. Modern is an eternal format, and they're just going to shift that goalpost so that the stuff that gets made there, I'm not saying going backwards. Like maybe they just go kind of like, right. Look, all this stuff, like modern's included in that. And we go from there. I do think that whatever is going to happen in there is very unresolved, right? Like I don't really believe that what Devin said is going to happen. I more believe what Shane said is going to happen. Sure. But I don't think that they did a good job communicating that particular thing.
I mean, imagine if they now, let's say this is very hypothetical because we don't know really what the power level of Foundations era Magic will even be. But let's say they just like massively depower it. They make it like a very casual game. I doubt it, because if they're going back to standard as a focus, then you can't also like gut it as like an interesting game to play. But then they have Pioneer Masters and Pioneer Horizons and Modern Horizons to sell as the only way to keep these formats going or something like that. I think that would be bonkers. But I mean, those are the options that open up to them, right? It's just like, yeah, like if you play these formats, you buy these sets and they cost $8 or $12 a pack. And you have to buy them to stay enfranchised.
Maybe they don't need modern to keep going in the long term.
This is the other take, is that maybe they're like, we've been spending too much time on a successful but smaller fish, and what we need to do is go after this other fish.
One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about today, based on the 6 standard sets a year model, is that's I don't know if this is exactly true, but that's essentially the cadence of the Pokemon card game. Pokemon puts out a lot of product. They basically have a new set every 2 to 3 months.
They're small sets though, right? How many cards are in this?
Like 150 to 200.
Yeah,
it's somewhat small.
It's a good amount smaller. That's like 50% less, or a third less.
Okay, but Pokemon is only standard,
right?
With yearly rotation. And we're not even talking about the changes to rotation.
They really have no extended like.
It technically exists, but it has zero support and basically no real community engagement.
Okay,
that's the thing that's extremely wild to me, Stan, but interesting.
Yes, and I think Pokemon's a wildly successful game because it has the competitive side, but it also has this very large collector market, much larger than Magic's collector market maybe will ever be. But I think there's something to be said about the success of that model of releasing products curated for competitive environment, like to make sure that your most enfranchised players, not just collectors, but players, continue to engage with your product. You just only support the sets where these products can be played.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically, kind of like the point that I was getting at earlier that I alluded to where we were talking about power down. I mean, if you kind of dial it all the way back to sort of the beginning or the introduction of supplemental products, this was Commander, I don't know, it might have just been called Commander period, or 2011, which was when they introduced this like new product that was supposed to be just for Commander. And I don't remember what the exact timeline was, but there were, I don't know if it was the entire product line or if it was just some specific cards that they ended up, seeing they ended up being legal in Legacy for whatever reason. And early on, you start off small with stuff like Scavenging Ooze, kind of maybe upgrade to stuff like True Name Nemesis and Leovold down the road. But as time goes on, you feel like you need to push the boundaries even further and further. Not even getting into, the Horizon sets because those were direct to modern. Even something like White Plume Adventure, like that card basically broke Legacy for an entire year. And I guess what I'm afraid is sort of maybe the kind of playing devil's advocate to what I said earlier, where this could potentially happen here. Where, depending on whether or not we get these additional products that, whether or not we keep the direct to modern stuff or, heaven forbid we get direct to Pioneer, like if we don't have that and they feel maybe they like, okay, well, do we need to have some sort of implementation or some sort of plants here for the modern players, or and if that's the case, if those cards are maybe pushed a little bit more, now you kind of see the pattern of does this continue to happen? You continue to push the boundaries over and over. But then if you look at the other side of that, if it's the complete opposite of that, and these UB products are specifically like toned down to the point where the cards maybe aren't playable in like a commander setting because they have to keep them low power enough for standard. Maybe they're not even good enough for standard play. Then, ultimately, like besides the people who are just collectors, like who even, depending on where the power level goes, who even wants this product? And it's in, obviously we don't know what the sets are going to look like. We have a vague idea. I think there was some Marvel cards that got spoiled, but it's just kind of interesting to see like that example of the initial commander product and like how that would potentially impact, these sets moving forward as well.
Yeah, balancing this is going to be hard, right? Like both with just the quantity of cards going into standard, the existence of foundations, the 3-year rotation. Like I just feel like there's a lot of balls in the air for WOTC right now.
This conversation is happening at an interesting time because we know something the world doesn't know yet, and we're sitting on it this week. We're releasing this episode as soon as the embargo's up and essentially the announcement goes live. So we're kind of like participating in the first wave of discourse without even really being party to that. Actual
I'm glad.
discourse.
I'm glad we can't react to we can't do a React-A-Sode. Like I saw this tweet, I saw this Reddit post.
I mean, we are doing a React-A-Sode though, and the Reddit post we saw was Stan.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Giving us info.
How do you think people will react?
I think they're going to hate it.
I think if the letter of what you've said is what's in the announcement, without further clarification, people are going to freak out. Yes, I agree with Devin.
It depends by who you mean by how people. Meaning, I'm not saying that disparagingly.
Living,
I mean, like
breathing,
in terms of like
Homo sapiens,
casual spikes, competitive players, people on Reddit, people on Twitter, people on Discord are very different than very different than the people Dave is talking about, who are like might be super amped to be like, yes, cool, like I have a reason to buy the set.
They aren't going to know this though. Those people aren't going to hear about this. Those people are going to buy these sets.
So tree is falling in the woods. They're not hearing it.
We're hearing the tree fall on us.
We're in the woods.
The Marvel people, we are the woods. Yeah, exactly. The Marvel people will just be picking up boosters of Spider-Man when they're checking out at Target. Like that's what this is.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I think people will not love this.
This is one of the things that concerns me about this strategy. For what it's worth, is that I'm of mixed emotions as to whether this will drive more people into LGSs or if this will actually drive more mass consumer buying. I think it's actually the latter, where it will be like, hey, I'm just hanging around and I'm a big, Final Fantasy person, and I see Final Fantasy Magic cards at Target and I buy 8 packs.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it as well, that I kind of, when you mentioned the Target Walmart aspect of things, I wonder if part of this is they can, like, it's easier. Would you say it's easier to sell a product that's like, okay, here's Duskmoor and House of Horrors. You go to your retailer or however the system works. Like, do you guys think you can sell this product? Or, hey, here's a product with Spider-Man in the front with more people that can resonate. So it's probably a lot easier to kind of be like, hey, large sales representative, you can sell this stuff a lot easier than you could sell a set that's, Duskmoor and House of Horrors. Nobody knows what Duskmoor even means.
I wouldn't be surprised, now that you mentioned this, Devin, if there's even a world where Duskmoor Return to Tarkir doesn't even show up in Target anymore.
Maybe.
And that the mass market retail channels just buy the Universes Beyond
just
product.
Keep it the AV stuff, yeah.
And I guess.
I don't know if they can do that. I'm sure there's so many different aspects of those contracts that like I'm not involved in that industry. I don't really know, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, there came to be a reality where it was like, okay, all the Magic stuff goes to the hobby stores. The Target's not interested in the other stuff. They only buy the crossover products and maybe a couple of other things, but mostly the whole market even splits in that way as well.
Very speculative, but we'll see. You know, one of the reasons why I ask about what we think the anticipated reaction is because this conversation isn't over. Like, we're looking at weeks of not just discourse, but Maro's blog post contextualizing it and helping sell it, like Blake stream, like answering questions with the developer. Like, there's going to be some back and forth. There's going to be, I think, like an earnest, but also like a marketing push to kind of like convince people like this guy's not falling. And I do want to, like, if I'm trying to anticipate something that we're going to hear, is that for the enfranchised players, like, the game stays good. You know, I think back to something that David brings up a lot, that like Magic is also a system that can absorb all of these other skins, for lack of a better word, but the game is fundamentally the same. And like, is the game enough to keep us engaged in a world where if we want to compete in RCQs, like, we might have to play against Spider-Man and Tifa in the same deck?
Tifa.
I mean,
I can't fight against Tifa.
Is that the question you're actually asking us right now, Stan? Like, you know,
I want to know your answer,
Yeah.
Stan. What's your gut on this? I feel like maybe you've been the principal moderator a little bit the last 40 minutes or so.
I mean, it was the subject of an hour-long therapy session I had today, because it was on my mind when I had to go to my mental health professional. It's all we talked about.
so
I still don't know.
You really could talk about this for an hour, like this topic.
Well, it was raw. It
Put
was
it on the
very
internet.
raw. It was raw. I mean, it was also colored by the fact that I was disappointed with my RCQ performance.
Wow.
Yes, that's just magic.
the
then.
double whammy of managing competitive disappointment with also this feeling of this thing that's been a big part of my life is changing, and is it passing me by or not? Am I getting old? Am I out of touch with the times?
Yes.
Like, that's what this represents to me.
I honestly think it does represent that to me a little bit too, when you put it in that context, where you're just kind of like, you know, I've been a part of this for a long time, and maybe it's just not my era for the moment.
Yeah, it's not for you anymore.
And that's hard and sad. And I was like, is it a divorce? Is it a separation? Or are we just in counseling? Because, like, I don't know how I'm going to feel. Like, I know how I feel immediately right now. And it's like the ick of like, oh, so everything is Marvel. But I also don't know how I'm going to feel when it's like, I miss the thrill of competition, and I miss like engaging with the cards, and like, you know what I mean? Like, there's these competing forces within me.
Yeah, not to mention your life is changing just generally because you're a parent of 2 children instead of 1 children, and so that's more complicated, and yada yada yada. You know, this is stuff that happens. This is 40, Stan, which you're not too quite yet. But I said this earlier today, and I would emphasize this point here, is that Magic it's many different things to many different people, right? And it can be many different things to the same person across their life. I think it's been proven to me in my life anyway. And it's possible that the way that we've been engaging is going to change, right? I mean, maybe as a result of this, we'll see. But I do think I will always be, you know, Stan has a friend that I hope would consider me as a friend here in town as well. Sam, great guy. We talk about him all the time.
Love you, Sam.
Yeah. And, you know,
Ball is life, Sam.
I'm like choking up now. The idea of being like, even if I stop engaging with this part for a minute because I'm like, I'm over Fortnite.magic, it's not going to make me not want a vintage cube when people want to hang out that I know. It's not going to make me not want to have like a couple of commander decks or even a couple of modern decks that I just keep and maybe, you know, get together and play with friends. Like, it's just a different engagement style, but it's still a thing that matters.
Getting very brass tacks about it, like I appreciate what you're saying, Dave, and I agree with it, right, in a lot of ways. But I think like brass tacks, like you said, as people engage with the game in different ways, there's no way financially they want to lose the audience that engages with their premium products and will purchase, $200 something boxes of Modern Horizons 3. Like
several of them.
Like there's,
let's say,
there's going to be, they will not want to forego the competitive audience when they're just rebuilding back up, like the idea of what competitive Magic is. They're not going to want to lose that revenue, to lose like the history that comes with it. To like, there's no reason to do that. I think what we really need is a better understanding of what Foundations era actually ends up looking like. We have more than like a handful of Foundations cards and like the Marvel set or a Spider-Man set, and we see what comes of it, right? And like what the plan is. And I think that what I think you were saying this, Stan and Dave, I think was like the challenge they have in front of them is one of marketing. Like, how do you like? I don't think that you can entirely like say like every Universes Beyond thing is going to be like a casual pickup and like a Target line. You know what I mean? Like, I think like there's going to be like a new push for like, what does new player acquisition look like in a UB world? What does enfranchised player retention look like in a UB world? And I think like that is the stuff we will see more from like the Blakes and the Morrows and the company itself.
I have an angle I want to talk about with Devin. One of the reasons why this is hard to fully understand how I feel is because my relationship with Magic as a competitive outlet is very unique to Magic, where like there aren't a lot of other places where I want to compete and see myself improve and learn strategy and learn from better players than me and like even have my own ambitions about performance and success. People have that with all sorts of things. I happen to have that with Magic, and it's this feeling of like, I don't know if I can find that with something else, and whether, like, do I dabble in Pokemon again? Because that'll never not be anything more than Pokemon. Or is it kind of accepting like Magic is the best game, you just have to take it at face value. And it's also like a vehicle for IP crossovers. Like how do you marry those two things of like the love of the game versus your personal feelings about the creative direction and artistic direction of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like I've been playing competitive card games since the year 2000, right? I started Pokemon, went to Yu-Gi-Oh for a little bit, and then Magic ever since then. And
January 1st, the lights stayed on, the computers kept working.
Yeah,
like, I'm buying a booster pack.
I'm hooked.
I'm ready.
I'm in. But like you said, it's like there's not really any other aspect or any sort of other game that provides the same level of competition that Magic does. And maybe that's just because I haven't explored the other games enough in terms of their competitive outlet. But it's like riding a bike. You've been doing this forever. You can't really forget how to do it. And I think when it comes to like my sort of overall outlook on this is if I am, sort of willing enough to continue to pursue this game as in a competitive fashion, then part of me believes that like I can just kind of deal with it. Like if they print some stupid Spider-Man or SpongeBob card, I'm just going to be like, all right, well, now I just got to play with it. I mean, that's kind of what happened with
pineapple under the sea.
That's kind of what happened with the One Ring, where they just print this completely broken card, and whether or not you engage with Lord of the Rings, it's like, well, I mean, you got to play with it.
Yeah, Devin, I do have a little bit of a follow-up question here, though, because that's talking you personally and as a competitive Magic player, but as someone who streams as your job, does this seem like there's probably going to be there could potentially be an influx of people who are more interested in Magic on platforms? Or what do you think about that?
Well, I guess in terms, speaking directly for like my specific audience or what I perceive my audience to be,
right?
Like I am like a lot of what I do on stream is like preparing for competition. I'm playing a bunch of different formats, but playing standard to prepare for the RSQ season, playing modern to prepare for the upcoming RC. Like a lot of what I do on stream has some sort of meaning, and there is some sort of like competitive background or reasoning that I'm playing these formats. And I think that what you're getting at is maybe a little bit more of the casual aspect. And I don't know that that's how I want to engage with the game. Like, I still want to be playing whatever the most relevant competitive format is, or I want, like, why I was so down recently about the Pioneer changes is because, like, I want to have a reason to play Pioneer. I want there to be tournaments to play. And if there's no tournaments to play, there's no reason for me to play the format, or at least in my eyes. And that is kind of, that's what my mentality is, and that's kind of what the stream focus is. And if, you know, if like the game is going more towards a casual aspect, like I don't know if I necessarily want to be in that casual aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's possible that enough people come in through the door that get competitive that they find you, even, you know what I mean? Like,
Maybe.
you're not doing like, here's my Spider-Man theme deck, here's my SpongeBob theme deck. You're like, that some people might do, right? In the kind of the top, the broader kind of way you're talking about it. So that makes sense.
I'll never touch Commander. Regardless of how much they juice it up, not going to do it.
See, I feel like I'm just going to end up being like a Commander player or something like that, just because.
Don't do it.
Yeah, just because I feel like
Walter White in the car. No, don't do it.
Dave and Stan are going down this road.
Vintage Cube is the best. I gotta say,
that is true.
I mean, part of this, to be honest, has me also just going like, okay, where I am in my life and like all those kind of things. Like, am I just gonna drift my way back to playing limited? And like that's kind of like my core Magic experience, and I don't know. I can enjoy that, right? Like, there's no cross contamination between sets and limited. I'm doing Spider-Man for a few weeks, and then if I don't want to do Wolverine, I'll come back later when it's
Pink Panther.
Pink Panther, exactly. I don't know. I have my doubts that these cards. It's so weird. Like, I also feel like maybe only 3 of these cards make it into Eternal formats, and it doesn't matter. I don't know.
That's the other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up. You know, and I should have mentioned this earlier when we had this discussion on where the legality of the sets, because earlier you mentioned, or like, I don't remember if it was you specific, Stan, that mentioned, or if it was in one of the slides, where they're not going to be what's called eternal legal. And I was always under the impression that eternal encompassed everything that was non-rotating. But if eternal only means legacy and vintage, do they not consider, like, modern and pioneer are non-rotating formats? So why would those not necessarily be included in that, like, eternal hashtag? You know what I mean? It's kind of weird.
The eternal formats are vintage, legacy, commander, and pauper. Eternal sometimes confused with the notion of non-rotating. All eternal formats are non-rotating, but pioneer, modern, historic, and timeless are non-rotating formats that are not eternal.
Okay.
So there is
I guess there is a differential there. Okay.
There's a difference there. Again, if the phrase is eternal legal, it does leave modern and pioneer out in the cold specifically.
Got it. Okay. That answers my question then.
The one point that I was going to make that I have not made so far, that Shane hinted at way off the top, is they say like this all the time and change their minds. Because constantly what they do is they go, this is the thing that performed the best in the last 18 months.
They get out over their skis.
The thing that performed the best in the past 18 months is now the future of Magic. And then they go, oh, no, we over-indexed on this. And there is a long list of things that fall into this definition.
Yeah.
You know, Masterpieces is an infamous one. Do you guys remember?
Yes.
Masterpieces didn't really... They've kind of stopped existing, but they're kind of back again. Some
Hidden Treasures, remember that?
Yeah, now they're special guests. Yeah. But the original ones that were the cards that were in Kaladesh, right? Where they were like, we're going to have this set. It's going to be 50 reprints. There's going to be 50 reprints in every set that are themed art for the sets, and they're going to make sense and blah, blah, blah. What Battle for Zendikar was another one that had the lands, like the masterpieces there. They did that for like 4 sets, and then they went, oh my God, we've reprinted to all of these cards already. We don't have that many cards that we can reprint. Yeah. Another thing is Jumpstart. So remember Jumpstart, they were like, there's going to be a Jumpstart set that goes along with every single standard set that we release, guys. Isn't that great? People love the idea of Jumpstart. Nobody plays Jumpstart the way it's supposed to be played, guys.
Yeah, that was like 2 sets.
Jumpstart is going to be part of Foundations.
There's going to be a Jumpstart Foundations, but what they said at one point in time was every set that comes out is going to have its own Jumpstart release.
Right. Instead of Jumpstart being a standalone thing, it's going to be supplement to the sets themselves.
Right.
And they're like, well, we're not going to do that at all. And
right. That lasted for like 3 sets. So this stuff, when they pop up, I think we should all be to remember that not only will there be a Twitter outcry in it, they're going to get 15 months into the future of working on this, and they're going to go, oh crap.
Yeah. What's our next Funko Pop line going to be?
We did it again. And I have thoughts. I mean, just from like the implementation side that comes, but the thing that Shane mentioned earlier that he kind of teased about was me saying, how many IPs out there are there really for them to be able to make 200 or 300 card sets in the world of these IPs 3 times a year? 3 times a year, we're going to do this.
I mean, there's probably a lot out there, right?
Do you think there's 10 years worth? Like, how many is there?
There's a lot, but it's not like Fortnite. It's not like Funko Pops as much as I want to like be cute and reference those, right? Because all you're making there is a version of a character, typically, right? You're going to have like LeBron James, the Cav Funko Pop. You're going to have LeBron James, the Laker Funko Pop. Maybe you'll have Iron Man and Iron Man special costume version and whatever, right? But you're not making a set of 250 cards.
Unique pieces
that you have to build around a world. Like, and that is going to be, especially with the potentially increased pace. Like, are they doing like aggressive hiring to like, from world building and design and all that kind of stuff where it's like, how do we make this concept into an actual set, 3 times a year with a different IP that is likely going to have contractual obligations in what you can and cannot do with the IP? How certain characters are represented, what certain pieces of the world are, like what can Thor's hammer do and not do? Because like you can't break canon in Magic or something like that, right? Like these are an increased amount of like labor and thinking and effort on the part of the designers and creative staff at WOTC that might be a lot. I mean, it definitely will be a lot, but like, will it be too much? And I mean, I can't answer that question, but.
So that's why I think as much as it might be kind of crap to be like, well, this is the immediate future of Magic because they've got 9 sets lined up right now for the next 3 years that they're like, okay, we feel good about these ones. When they get to Sonic the Hedgehog Magic, they're going to be
like the old CGI Sonic before the public outcry made them change the look.
Right. And they're really going to be like, can we make 200 cards about Sonic? Can we make 200 cards about Mario? And by the way, don't forget that I don't think that they're going to have access to any Disney IP as a part of this.
I mean, there's going to be so much they can't get. Like, maybe they can. I mean, like Star Wars has plenty of card games that they've kept pushing, right? You know what I mean? Like you said,
it's also Disney IP.
Yes, and Disney. You're right. I mean, they
so what's going to happen
Marvel,
first? They're going to make
like Disney does own Marvel,
I guess that's
which did kind of blow my mind.
But this is Marvel Comics. This is
You're
Disney
right.
does not own. Disney owns Marvel Studios.
Yes,
this is
thank
Marvel
you.
Comics.
Thank you.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know the distinction there.
So like how quickly are they scraping the bottom of the barrel here?
I think it's faster than anybody realizes.
I mean, the joke I made in Discord was like, we're gonna get like a Smurfs set. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of stuff. I mean, not literally Smurfs, but I can imagine it being like, okay, well, I guess we're doing Simpsons, Futurama. Like, I mean, Family Guy.
Simpsons is owned by Disney. Sorry.
Are you serious? I forgot about that.
I just want to say the only reason they're not going to get Disney IP, I believe, and maybe it's just mainline Disney IP, is because of Lorcana.
Right.
That's the reason that I
no one's going to want to step on their own toes.
No, nobody. They're not going to license anything that's going to be a Lorcana set for Magic use. I don't think.
I think, David, you're underestimating how much intellectual property is out there.
Well, how about good intellectual property?
Or not even good, deep enough is all.
Or that people would want to purchase, or that they can design a game around. Like, I just think the challenge, it's a big challenge, I think, is what I'm hearing David say, and I agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, even for the ones that we have slated, right, like Marvel and Final Fantasy, I'm sure, like Marvel, you can probably think of, you can go pretty deep on that. But Final Fantasy is there 200 plus card designs for Final Fantasy? Like, I don't know.
Yes.
One time.
Maybe.
There's 16 games.
I think one time
Yes.
for Final Fantasy. One time. Sure. But, how many other franchises out there are like Final Fantasy? There's not that many.
A lot.
I don't know. I think that the depth thing is going to be harder for people to reach than they think it is. That's all. I think there's tons of options, but it's like, okay, are we going to make Wednesday the set? You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Like, I don't think that scenario is going to happen.
Yes, that's 2026.
Wednesday, 200 cards of the I can't wait for the dance or whatever.
You know what we need? We need a Bluey IP.
I'll buy that.
Wow, Devin, what a call. Bluey's going to be in Lorcana, though, I'm almost sure.
Oh, true.
How do we tie a bow on this? Are we doing anything with this information? Do we
Just turn off the recording.
do we do we want to have any flags planted about like how this makes us feel, what we're doing with this information, or just wait and see?
I mean, to be fair, we don't know a ton,
No,
right? We only have like the very, very bare bones. And I'm interested to see if maybe the article that's coming out on today, or when you're hearing this, is going to have a little bit more information as to a lot of the questions that we have. So, I want to reserve my judgment. Initially, I kind of hate it, but at the end of the day, like as somebody who is invested enough in the competitive scene, like I'm probably going to play the game regardless. I don't really care whether I'm casting a normal Magic card or Squidward.
I really hope there's a Squidward pretty quickly.
Oh, same.
We've leaned deep. I mean,
Deep on
we've leaned
SpongeBob.
hard into SpongeBob.
Oh, yeah.
I could make a set about SpongeBob, and I've barely seen it.
Can I tell you something? My kids constantly watch this YouTube game streamer named Zebra Gamer, who's like very family friendly. But they keep watching this video of him playing a SpongeBob game where SpongeBob is power washing things underwater, and that's the whole game.
Oh yeah, power washing games are popular.
What?
Like power washing simulator's a thing.
They're underwater.
My kids are watching for an hour every morning. They're
David,
watching him do a power
Your
washing
kids are not
simulator.
okay.
I like that this is Devin's stances, but they're underwater.
How can
Exactly.
you power wash something underwater?
It's a great question.
David, let your kids touch grass.
Oh my God, I'm trying. I try a little. I try some.
That's funny. Yeah,
But
wait
yeah,
and see.
that was a new scraping at the bottom of the barrel. And let me tell you, it only took my kids 3 years to get to the bottom of YouTube gaming and end up at power washing. I don't think it's going to take much longer than that for Magic to suddenly go, we cannot make
Snorks,
Donkey Kong the set. You know what I
Munchie
mean?
Cheese,
But we'll see.
Muppet Babies.
I'm saying they literally can make a Donkey Kong set.
Yeah.
If they can get, Nintendo IP, I can't imagine is cheap.
Well,
But
we'll
WOTC's,
see.
they've got the coffers, the cabal coffers.
I sort of agree with Devin. I mean, I'm generally negative on this announcement as well. It's certainly left me somewhat shook this afternoon. I think we'll talk, everybody's going to talk about it, but I will always love Magic in some form or another. It's just possible that relationship's going to change.
David, given the light of the news, are you still going to play an RCQ this weekend?
I would like to hang out.
So you just want me to come over?
I mean, we could just hang out too. I'm up for that.
Or you mean you want to play the RCQ to hang out?
That one.
I see.
Or we could just go get lunch.
It would be more expensive.
Magic is about the gathering at lunch.
It's about the tacos.
We could gather for tacos. Yeah.
Oh.
Stan,
Dave,
you have thoughts, I know. Bottom line thoughts.
I don't think I've left any stone unturned. I'm still figuring it out.
Okay.
That's kind of
it's a lot to
where I'm at.
process. Time will tell. And I just hope I don't have to say goodbye to this thing that I've loved for a really long time.
This is a levity based question. Are there IPs that you think would get you hyped? Like that you'd be like, sweet, like I'm glad this is in Magic.
Mortal Kombat.
You know why I think that's a really good question? Because I think there's something about Marvel specifically that makes the news feel like the pop culture soup.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it was just Final Fantasy and like The Legend of Zelda, like I don't think we would feel quite so weird about it.
Can I just say it? I mean, I'm not a movie enthusiast, but I do believe that Marvel has ruined the cinema.
Yes.
Right. And I don't know that much. I just believe intrinsically that is kind of true. And so I think that there's a little bit of that fear too, right?
But no, I mean, it's not Marvel and the cinema for me. It's more of the thing that I said 9 months ago with Shane of just like Magic used to be special and unique, and this used to be the Magic story, and it loses a little bit of that uniqueness when it becomes like the same pop culture soup as like a million other things on store shelves. And it's just another Marvel thing on store shelves rather than like, I know where to find the Magic cards and I know what this thing is and what it means and its pedigree.
Yeah.
But if the game is good, then maybe I'll keep playing. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore.
I'm going to be wait and see. Like, I think my take is pretty clear in terms of I see this as it's both a challenge for WOTC to do well at all. And even if they succeed, I think it is, like Stan said, sort of like a cultural homogenization that I'm not excited to keep playing in the same way. And maybe there's going to be very easy ways to stay engaged with the game in like the way that I would like to. And like you said, like maybe it's just, maybe it's cubing, or it's drafting, or it's commander or something. There's all sorts of ways to engage with this game, and that's why it's great. And so maybe that ends up being an option still. But like you do get the ick when you're like, the direction that this company is taking with this game that I have respected for so long, even before I was playing it again, and like, when cons came out, is, it's a game that you respect as existing and being a cool thing that exists, and then a way to have fun with your friends and then engage at a competitive level and make a 300 episode podcast about, right? Yeah. And I don't get as hyped thinking about our spoiler episode for SpongeBob. Do you know what I mean? And then that's the ick.
Mm-hmm. But I'm very hyped for the Pitchfork, the golden era of pitchforkmedia.com episode that comes out, where we get, best new music, the card, and overwrought review,
10.0 Kid A review.
Yeah, 0.0 review.
That's an interrupt.
7.4 masterpiece.
Regrettable 9.5. Like all of them.
They're gonna make an IP that's just Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Joanna Newsom Yeast.
She's good.
All right, shut it down. We got to shut it down. This is...
Well, that does wrap up this week's Very Sober Show. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. You can do that on Spotify too. I think we're approaching this point where it's easier for us to see the Spotify reviews than the Apple reviews. So, go where your heart takes you. If you'd like to submit a question to our podcast or just reach out in general, you can tweet us at thedivedown, all one word, or email thedivedown@gmail.com. You can also support our show at patreon.com/thedivedown, or check out our store at thedivedown.com/store. Head over to heavyplay.com to get some incredible deck and dice boxes and playmats featuring the EquipMag system. Use promo code thedivedown2024 for 10% off your first order. And check out our sponsor, Mana Traders. Use promo code thedivedown10, all one word, all spelled out, for 10% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards. Save some money on the latest Universes Beyond paper cards at our friends Nerd Rage Gaming. Promo code DIVE8 gets you 8% off at NRG. Special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spaceblood for letting us use their music. And until next week, get out there and have some fun with Magic while you can.